So this is a kind of a summary for project, not summary, but contribution from project 2 and 3, and especially from Marie Leclerc and myself. Okay, works now? Now, first, during the PV network years, the perovskite, so the perovskite appeared as a new materials. And so on this graph that I showed, these are the perovskites, and very small amount of time, they reach like close to 20% of efficiency, whereas this is the organics. So the perovskite basically challenges the organic because it involves them in a sense as an easy PV system to make, whereas only the organic had that playground before. But there's still difference. I want to note some differences. The materials in the most of the perovskite contain lead, so it's not very safe for the environment. And it seems to have some challenges to make a very large area where organic can do a good job. But still, this is a challenge for organic, and so I think organic now is in a process of redefining themselves to compete with this new technology. And so I will try to highlight how can we improve organic further to compete with this new technology here. I think there was still one of the challenges is still to understand the real working of a PV organic system. It's not quite clear, and there's a lot of interesting study that went along in that direction, both on the experimental effort, but I will not talk about that because I'm not an expert at that, but also on the theoretical efforts. We need to perform large-scale calculations, and this is always challenging. We can perform calculation, very accurate calculation on a unit cell, but when you have to look at the interface problem, this is quite challenging, and so we don't have a clear picture of the electronic property at the interface. And a few articles have been published on that issue yet, but still it's still limited, and so there's more effort that will be going into that direction. Including polarization effect is also important. So I've been showing graphs of calculations of energy in the last 5 years here, but I was maybe not lying to you, but over-optimistic, saying that this is the best result. But all of these calculations did include quite well polarization effect, and it's starting to be quite important to best describe and in fact to better understand this, the working of a PV system. Quickly, just want to show that there's been some work to try to understand on the experimental side. This is work with the group of Marie Leclerc with Alan Eager, showing that the quantum efficiency is close to 100%. This is the bulk heterojunction. This is the physical organic solar cell works. In terms of the electronics, we have energy levels, and then we have states which we call charge transfer states that can kind of be stuck at the interface. But we want charge differential state. And so this was kind of what was thinking about how this solar cell works, organic solar cell works. And the idea here is that can it be that some of the charge that we generate by the photon can go directly to the charge transfer state? And a very nice study, an outcome of this, the PV network, was done by Nicolas Bélivet and François Fermanché, and this was published in this article here. So they used materials of Marie Leclerc, and this was a research program that was led by Carlos Silva. And Nicolas was doing the calculation, François was doing the experiments, and they were able to show that actually there was the power information was very fast, and so it kind of faster than the excitation localization. So briefly, what they show is that in fact, this process was a dominant process, and so you go from absorbing photons directly to charge transfer states. So this was the starting of the understanding of this, of their working, and I think we need even more work to be done in that direction. And a very good example of how theory and experiment can couple each other to learn more about an experiment. If I want to talk more about other challenges of the organic system, I would call them the physics challenge. So we have mobilities. Organics have very low mobility, 1 to 5 centimeters squared per volt second, whereas the inorganics is of the order of 500. And there's also the dielectrics. Organic has very low dielectric constant, around 3, whereas the inorganic is 12 and above. Okay? So this is the striking difference between these systems. Concerning mobilities, just want to recall here that actually organic system can have very large mobility, and there's examples of that. Early on, there were measurements of mobility on naphthalene crystals, and you can, at low temperature, you can get up to 100 centimeters square per second. So this is, you can actually get to this kind of comparable value to silicon, but at low temperature. At much higher temperature, it goes down quite fast. Graphene is known to have very high mobility, up to 100,000 of centimeters square per second. So this is organic system. But then you have polyacetylene, and there in polyacetylene you have polarons to do the transport, and so very low mobility. But in this case here, you have diionization of your carbon system. So in this case here, the electrons are tied to the motion of the atoms. So there's a large electron-phonon coupling. But you can think of graphene as a series of polyacetylene connected together. So in a sense, you go from a very low mobility system to a very high mobility system just by making the crystal larger. So my conclusion of that is you need a very highly ordered conjugated materials to have a large mobility. Concerning the dielectrics, I think this is a new challenge for organic. They need to increase the dielectric constant of the materials. Why? Because that way it will decrease the binding energy of the exciton and resembling more the inorganic system. So if you can go down from, presently the binding energy of exciton in organic is 0.5 electron volt. If you bring this down, then you will, you can be able to maybe split the exciton easily at the interface. Also, the screening, you would better screen the charge, and so they will move more freely and then increase the mobility. So we know that dielectric constant goes as 1 over the energy gap of a system. Okay? You can derive that from perturbation theory. The smaller the gap, the higher the dielectric constant. For gallium arsenide, you have a gap of around 1.5 electron volt, and you have a dielectric constant of 16. For PCB-TBT, which is one of the most popular polymer for photovoltaic, you have a gap of 1.8 and you have a dielectric of 4. And you have polymer which have a gap of 1.5, but they still have a very low dielectric constant. And what's the reason for that? Well, the reason is, one of the reasons that I think, is that the side chain that are attached to these polymer do not participate in the screening. So Ian mentioned that you need to functionalize these molecules in order for the so that you can solution process them. And so you're adding these long chain here to increase the entropy, so they more easily process. But this does not participate in the electronics of the system, and so they're kind of dead wood that takes place, but they don't act as for the screening. So I think one of the challenges is trying to use smarter side chains to kind of go increase the dielectric constant. I want to finish by some of the challenges in the synthesis. So there's the 10-10-10 challenge. It's 10% power conversion efficiency, 10 cents per watt, and for a lifetime of 10 years. And we have lots of different polymers that are reaching this value of efficiencies. So in terms of the materials, we have that efficiencies. In terms of lifetime, some of the latest devices reaches 10 years of lifetimes. And in terms of energy payback, this is a graph that was published in this article here. And if you, for the best performance systems, you can now calculate energy paybacks in terms of hours. Lastly, the group of Marriott Lab, what they're aiming is going towards more a green synthesis process. And so they're kind of removing bad atoms in that system here, and so working so that the synthesis can be done in a water system to be very, very clean. Okay, thank you, and go ABSCO.
Merci, Mario. Questions for Mario?
Michel.
Mario's not here. He's here in spirit.
Yes, I have a question.
Oui, là, Michel.
And sorry, I thought that for
Yes.
the epsilon and the mu
the mobility and the dielectric constant aren't they? I know that increasing the dielectric constant will reduce the excitonic energy, binding energy. Is that what we're meaning? Because
Yes.
Okay. Because also for the maximum current that you can flow, it's actually not only the mobility that plays. It's also the product of the mobility by epsilon.
Yeah.
So if increasing epsilon without increasing mu, you still increase the number of charge that you can flow through.
That's right.
So,
Yeah. So
it plays twice actually.
yeah. So I don't think mobilities might not be a big issue for photovoltaic devices. I just put it there because I think I think if you increase screening, you get better mobility in a way because the charge will see.
And also, if you have very thin devices like organic alarm, you don't need to have so high mobility.
Any other questions? Okay, merci Michel.